Welcome. Hello, everyone. Today's webinar is Monitoring Community Recovery with CDP Data. So today we're going to present to you a capacity building tool that's been built in-house that's going to help make more and better use of community data. So over the past month or so, we've held two previous webinars focused on the tool itself on Tableau. That's the tool we've used to develop this dashboard. The first of those webinars was a very simple and hopefully clear instruction on how to download and use the free version of Tableau, and you'll need to use that in order to view the community recovery dashboard. And so if you didn't have a chance to do that and you end up having problems with Tableau itself, please look at the webinar page on our communitydata.ca, and it's going to give you a full laid out instruction guide on how to do that. We also had a second webinar for our more advanced users, and those are you who probably already use Tableau or intend to use Tableau to do your own analysis. And so if that's of interest to you, please go back into those webinars. The recordings are there and you'll be able to watch those and just be able to do more. Those are for your higher capacity users or people who really have access to a licensed version of Tableau. So our plan for today is to give you a full introduction to our community recovery dashboard. So I have two of my colleagues here today. I've got Michelle and Jamie. Michelle is going to walk you through the indicators. This is sort of the broader level of what we've included in the dashboard. We had actually intended to build a dashboard of some sort starting last year. My colleague Jamie began playing with Tableau and starting to get some training on the tool in the winter of last year. Obviously, things took a big turn in the springtime, and it turned out we needed to really focus on community vulnerability. And so that's what we did. We took this tool that we were already sort of trying to master and see what the potential it had to help us express our community data. And this is the result of many months of Jamie spending. So Michelle's going to take you sort of a walk through those indicators and the overall broad strokes of what's included into the dashboard. And then our resident Tableau expert, although maybe not by his choice, he's been spending months now with this. He's going to share his screen and he's going to just take you through a whole tour of the dashboard. And so this is a great chance. We will be watching the chat screen. If you have any questions or you would like to see something in particular, we would love to hear from you. So go ahead and type it, use that chat box freely. Any comments you have, we will be monitoring that throughout. One of the things we would really like to get out of this session is some of your feedback. So once Jamie has shared his tour of the tool and we've answered any questions you folks have, I'm going to put some of those poll questions back up on the screen and just get a bit of your feedback on where you're seeing this going, because this tool is something that we plan to have evolve. It's not a finished project. There are room for it to grow. And we are very excited about using this Tableau tool to produce further capacity building tools for you. And so any feedback you have for us, whether it's about this tool in particular, about this dashboard, or something you would like to see in the future, we would love to hear about. And so we'll have time more for that at the end. So I don't see any more questions. Hopefully there is no more audio issues. We've been clear today, so that's a good sign. I'll patch it over to Michelle. Thanks, Michelle.
Thanks, Mary. I just want to make sure my screen is being shared and my audio is clear before I continue onwards.
Both are clear. Go for it.
There's a question. So as Mary has laid out, we had embarked on a project to make it easier for our members to access IVT tables, and as a way to start using the data to tell some stories. So COVID-19 put a focus on questions of recovery and looking at recovery both from the point of view of how are different communities recovering at different rates, or how will they be recovering at different rates, and how are different demographic groups going to be recovering differently. So that was the context, was using our data to understand how recovery will play out over the next many years in terms of different impacts on municipalities and neighborhoods and different impacts on demographic groups. And of course, the data we acquire does a good job of speaking to that. The challenge is to access some of these complex data sets. And for many of our members, working with Beyond 2020 and IVT tables is not particularly constructive. So this effort is just as much about telling a story about recovery from COVID as it is about making it easier to access data. And as Mary has said, and I'll repeat it, we are very much looking for your feedback on any aspect of this tool, whether it's the indicators that we're using, if there are others that you'd like to see, whether it's how the tool is laid out, and we'll get to that when Jamie walks through the tool, or any of the themes, if there's some themes that you'd like to address. So anything on your mind. In our minds, developing this dashboard and this monitoring tool is a way to develop a new set of products that might make it a lot easier for a lot of you to access complex data. So with that context in mind, I'll just walk you through, broadly speaking, the themes and some of the data sources we're relying on. So all of these themes are tied to the theme of vulnerability to COVID and recovery from it. And we are drawing from sources that are available to us, some of which are well familiar to all of us, the census, of course, because it allows us to drill quite deeply into municipal and neighborhood geography, but other sources as well. One I'll flag related to household finance is some model data we've just acquired from Statistics Canada that essentially allows us to measure household savings. So it's modeling liquid assets down to the census division geography. Not quite the census subdivision we're aiming for, but it's our first attempt at working with Statistics Canada to model data that is otherwise entirely unavailable in anything smaller, typically, than a province. So model data is an example of some more innovative data sources that we're working with. And then there's a newly released Canadian housing survey being carried out every 2 years from 2018 through the National Housing Strategy. The Canadian Housing Survey does provide some data at the census subdivision level. It doesn't look like it'll get any smaller than that, but offers some interesting perspectives, which I'll get into in a minute when I go through some of the indicators. Now, in principle, we are, as with the project, as with the program generally, we really want to focus on data products that allow us to talk about municipalities, particularly at the census subdivision level. So as a starting point, we're not too excited about data sets that don't go down to the CSD. I mentioned the model data is the equivalent of counties or regional municipalities, where we can go further than that with Statistics Canada over time. But aiming for the census subdivision, and then ideally looking at neighborhoods, including our custom geographies. And for those of you that don't work with custom geographies, an important service of the program is to develop a number of our tables at geographies that don't align neatly with Statistics Canada geographies. So we do work with Statistics Canada, and they will customize our tables. So where these exist for the indicators we're looking at, we hope to, in future iterations of this tool, to make available custom geographies. And all of this presupposes that this tool is available for members only. And Jamie will get into this a little more, but the tool is available as a downloadable product. And Mary, just so you know, because I have my full screen, I don't really see the comments. I'll let me know if there's anything I should get to, but I will pause at the end.
Absolutely, I will, Michelle.
So when I say an equity lens on recovery, we're talking about variables like these. So looking at those in low income, we're looking at the low income measure after tax, but also a range of demographic groups. And when I say they're inverse, so rather than just looking at recent immigrants, those who've arrived within Canada in the past 5 years versus the total population, we want to understand the established immigrant population, those that have been here for at least 5 years or 10 or more years, and then the non-immigrant population, those that were living in Canada. So these 8 demographic groups, what we're trying to do wherever possible is cross-tabulate our variables by these groups, so you get a much richer understanding of the impacts of recovery on a range of demographic groups, right down where we can to the neighborhood level. And again, Jamie will go into this a little more. Some of these will be easier to work with than others. Activity limitations, for those of you that have worked with it, is not an easy variable. It was introduced in the census not for purposes of doing day-to-day analysis for programming, but really as a filter question to a broader survey on disabilities. But we will be using quite a number of these, as you'll see in a moment, for understanding the equity, an equity dimension to recovery, and an equity dimension to recovery at a municipal and neighborhood scale. And in terms of the indicators, I won't go through each one of these. I guess this presentation and these slides are, of course, available to you. So if you had any questions about these indicators, or you feel that there's some that are missing, or questioning why some of these are here, please do let us know. I mean, this is not a fixed product. We see it evolving over the next year. We anticipate that we will update this with the 2021 census, and that's going to get released within, even by the end of this 2021. Of course, the custom tables won't be coming out till later in 2022, but this is our foundation for updating with fresh census data.
Michelle, I'll pause you for a second. We did have a question from Bethany wondering about the years available for many of these data sources. So I think that speaks to that question that all of this is based on our last census, right? The vast majority is based on last census.
Right. So for now, we are looking at a snapshot in time. So we're looking at the where the census is the source. We're looking only at the 2016 census. For Canadian business counts, we're looking at one point in time. And of course, we have multiple years for many of these products, and we can choose to, capacity permitting, introduce some additional years within this tool. But of course, part of what this tool is trying to do is provide our members with the basis for producing your own report. So you can, of course, go into the catalog and extract the same data sets for different years if you want. So that's something that we can visit. If there's interest in other years, then yeah, please let us know. And the options are we introduce it ourselves, or we point people as part of a guide to where the earlier years are, because not all of these are available for earlier years, but quite a number are. So what this slide shows are the indicators that we are introducing now. Many of these are already included in the tool that Jamie's going to walk through you with. I think we've done, I don't know if we've done 100% of these, but these are all available to us now. So we are populating this version 1 with these data sets. So I won't go through these in any detail. Really, I wanted to hand over to Jamie as quickly as possible. But here, around 2 indicators have a number of data limitations, typically around geography. So we're hesitant to spend too much time up front putting these into place. But if there is interest in introducing some of these into the tool, we will certainly do so. I mean, business bankruptcies, for example, is only available to us at the forward sortation area of geography, which is pretty big. Doesn't provide much detail, but it might be of interest. And at the bottom, the Canadian Housing Survey, we were waiting. There's been some programs with CMHC in releasing some of these data sets, or Statistics Canada releasing some of these data sets. And they do provide some interesting perspectives, but it's only at the census subdivision scale, not anything deeper. So I won't go into any of these in great detail, but the point here was that we have moved forward with a number of indicators already, and we intend to move forward with another group. And if we're missing anything, let us know. I mean, this is very much meant to be a responsive tool. And I imagine Jamie will provide this, and we can put the link into the chat box. But the tool is, it's in its current version, available through a couple of methods. You can go directly to the catalog, and so we've set it up as a downloadable Tableau file, which needs to be opened with Tableau Reader, which is a free downloadable tool on your desktop. And you can also go into our COVID-19 data resources portal, and one of the first items is a link to this community recovery dashboard. So with that, I'm going to hand back over to Mary and Jamie. And thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Yeah, so this whole webinar is being recorded, so you can go back and have a look at those as well and provide us any feedback if you want to go through that list. I've also got Mike Dieter now joining us. So Mike is part of our CDP team and our data access guy. So I was just going to say, so Mike will answer your data questions as he has just done. So we are going to move straight through to Jamie, and Jamie's going to share his screen and take us through our tour of the dashboard.
Okay, so what you're looking at right now is the Community Recovery Dashboard version 1.0, which is now available in the catalog. All you'll need to open it is Tableau Reader installed on your computer, and that's a free download. And you can find the link on the catalog entry page. So the main goal of the current state of the dashboard is to provide a monitoring tool for medium and long-term COVID-19 recovery. So it looks at the state of neighborhoods in cities across Canada prior to the pandemic in order to assess and compare their capacity for recovery from the economic and health impacts of COVID, as well as look at the extent of those impacts. So indicators were selected covering 7 different themes, each relating to the topic of community recovery. And each of those themes, the indicators for each of those themes are contained in separate tabs of the dashboard, accessed through the buttons along the top, as you can see here. So in building the functionality of the dashboard, we had 2 main goals. One was to be able to compare the indicators that we're looking at across different census tracts within a city. And the second is to be able to view detailed profiles of individual census tracts. So right now we're looking at the demographics tab. So I'll go over the different parts of this tab to show you how we implemented this functionality. In the top left, there is an interactive map showing the census tracts in a CMA. Selected right now is Toronto. And next to the map is a drop-down menu which lets you pick a CMA to view on the map. So let's say I select Calgary here, it'll automatically zoom me over to Calgary on the map and show me all the census tracts there. Under the CMA menu, there is another drop-down that lets you select an indicator to view on the map. So the census tract polygons on the map are colored in according to their value for the indicator you selected. So right now it's total population. And so the darker the shade of blue, the higher the value for population. So this allows you to compare indicator values between census tracts and see the overall geographic spread of the data.
Jamie, there's a question whether the charts can show the results for the whole CMA or just for one CT that you've selected.
Right now, they only show data for one CT at a time. Later there will be bubble charts which we've incorporated, which are sort of a way of showing data for the whole census tract or the whole CMA, but there is not currently any values for the entire CMA. That is something we are aware of and probably will be adding in the future. So all the tabs in the dashboard contain an interactive map like this that basically functions the same as this one, but the indicator options that are available will be relating to the theme of that tab. So clicking a census tract on the map will show you a detailed profile of that census tract in the rest of the tab. So let's say I click here, it'll automatically filter all the charts in the rest of the tab down to that census tract. And then, so the topic of this tab is demographics. So it shows the prevalence of different demographic groups in the population for the selected census tract. So the idea being that different groups are impacted disproportionately by COVID. So knowing the demographic composition of a neighborhood can help measure the impacts. So the next tab focuses on employment. And it has a map in the top left that works just like the one in the previous tab. So this tab shows the top industries and occupations by number of employees for a selected census tract. It compares employment numbers against the percentage loss in employment for those industries in the selected CMA, which is what is in the bottom left here, and also compares them against the COVID-19 exposure risk for those occupations. So the bar charts represent the employment numbers, and then the colors of the bars represent the level of employment loss in the case of the bottom left here, and then also the exposure risk for the bar charts on the right. So the the exposure risk scores come from a Vancouver School of Economics data tool where they developed a methodology for assigning risk scores to occupations. And the data sources tab in the dashboard includes a link to that tool where you can find a detailed description of their methodology. So the risk scores are compared against employment numbers for both people living in the selected neighborhood and people working in the selected neighborhood. So that's what these two different bar charts represent. And then for people living in the neighborhood, there is an additional filter here that lets you look at the employment counts for different age groups. And then the employment loss numbers in the bottom left are the percent change in employment between June 2019 and June 2020. And they are for the whole CMA because that's the level that the data was available at. And they come from the labor force survey. So housing is the topic of the next tab. And the indicators in this tab relate to the topic of housing, of course, and include household size, density, and housing suitability for different demographic groups. And suitability is basically a measure of overcrowding. So this tab incorporates in the top right here what we are calling a bubble chart or circle chart, which provides another means for comparing data across census tracts. So basically each row in the bubble chart, each bubble in a row represents a census tract in the city selected on the map. And then a bubble's position along the x-axis represents its value for that row's indicator. And in the case of this tab, the indicators are the number of suitable and non-suitable households for these different demographic groups. So clicking a census tract on the map will highlight the corresponding bubble in the bubble chart and show you its value. So that's what that looks like. And this allows you to see where a census tract ranks among all the census tracts in that city. And it also generates the profile below, just like in the previous tabs. Alternatively, you can click a bubble in the bubble chart, and then that will highlight that census tract in the map. So the rest of the tabs in the dashboard function essentially the same as this one. So I'll just give you a quick overview of them to show you what they're about without going too much into the functionality of them. So the commuting tab shows you the modes of commuting used by different demographic group populations. So you can see the percentage of people commuting by public transit and by car and other methods. The place of work tab shows the proportions of people in demographic groups who work at home, at a regular place of work, or who don't have a fixed place of work. I see a question about asking whether there's a way to get the name of the neighborhood. So that's not built into the data, but with the base map, you can kind of zoom in and you can sort of see the labels. So you might be able to figure out the name of the neighborhood that way by looking at the labels on the base map. So the income tab shows the average and median after-tax income of the different demographic groups that we are looking at. And then finally, the collective dwellings tab shows the population in a selected census tract living in collective dwellings, as well as their incomes, the age groups of that population, and the types of those dwellings. So that is the last of the tabs containing data, but after that I've included a tab for COVID-19 case data links, which just links to the CDP's COVID-19 Community Data Resources portal. So this provides links to a variety of sources for COVID-19 case data. So you have easy access to those if you want to compare against the data from the dashboard. And then the last tab is for data sources and notes. And this lists off every indicator in the dashboard. It shows the data source, the year of that data, and any important notes relating to that indicator, and a link to where the data is from, which in most cases is a link to the CDP catalog, and for a few, it's a link to the StatsCan website, and then for the exposure risk numbers, there's a link to the data tool where that comes from. So that is the Community Recovery Dashboard version 1.0. I hope you will give it a try if you haven't yet. And we'd like to hear your feedback and questions. So feel free to send those right now in the chat, as I see you're already doing, or try it out after you've tried it out in the future. Sorry, I'm getting a bit of feedback right now. If you try it out in the future and have any questions or feedback about it, then feel free to send us that by email. I'll put the email in the chat that you can send those to. Thank you.
Hi, thanks, Jamie. Can you see the questions coming up now?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, so we're going to go back to Diana sorry, I'm not going to say your right name. Jeliatskova. She's wondering if there's a way to look at how COVID has impacted people's choice of where to live. Are we going to be able to see the shift from less dense housing or more rural housing? Now, this is not... Maybe, Michelle, do you want to speak to...
Something that will be maybe start something that we can look at or will become more visible once we have the next census data, the data from the next census to compare against the 2016 data. Because it's hard to really know that right now since we don't have the data for it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then there's a couple of questions about the employment. Okay, so we have one, is the risk scale for employment based on the start of the pandemic to date, or is it more month-to-month based on monthly data and change? So do you want to talk a little bit more about the employment risk?
I think that was based on the start of the pandemic. I don't think they've updated those risk scores since the pandemic started. But I think that, yeah, so the data that we're using is definitely from the start of the pandemic.
Do you want to speak a little bit to where that's coming from?
Maybe I can just go ahead, Jamie.
It's coming from a University of British Columbia, Vancouver School of Economics data tool that they put together, which basically they've come up with a methodology for assigning risk scores to these different occupations. So I think we're kind of just going off of what they're providing. So I think the best way to get a really detailed look at where these risk scores come from is to look at the data tool, which is linked in the data sources, and they have a user guide there that goes into a lot of detail explaining their methodology.
And if I could add, so the two types of risk in that dashboard, one is the risk associated with loss of employment, and that does change from month to month, of course, and since June there's been quite a bit of recovery, and it's probably worth our time to go back and look at that recovery. But the risk that Jamie was talking about was the risk of exposure to COVID, so that risk won't change much from month to month. Frontline worker or somebody working in personal support worker in long-term care, that level of risk probably is quite, it hasn't changed much. So that risk score was established by this UBC outfit and was assigned to every occupation and every industrial classification. And so we're taking those risk scores and assigning them to the 2016 value for what number of persons were in those types of occupations. So that risk score won't change. What changes is the number of people in those occupations.
Jasmine, I see your question
Okay,
about asking about whether it's possible to show percentages on the maps instead of counts. So that is something that we are aware of, and it's something that we want to implement in the future, but it's just a pretty substantial amount of work to calculate those percentages, just because of the way the data is structured. So that is definitely something we want to add and that we're aware of, but it's just we need to find the time to do it, basically.
Okay, and then we're moving down to questions on how can the data shown in each tab be customized other than the CT or the demographic on the left. And there are other geography maps available for areas that are not CMAs.
So right now there's not really much in the way of customization beyond selecting the geography that you want to look at. Basically, you select the geography and then it shows you the data that we've selected to show. There is one where you can filter for different age groups. If there is interest in that, then it would be possible to add more filters in certain cases. But right now, there isn't really a lot of options for that.
So that's something that everybody can be thinking about when you have a chance to go in and manipulate the tool a little bit. But what options would you like to have? What is it not doing that you want it to be able to do? And then let us know, and maybe we can make it happen. Or more accurately, maybe Jamie can make it happen. Okay, we had another question, Jamie, about can you walk people through the knowledge of official language graph under demographics? The numbers look low for Toronto CMA.
But before you get to that, if you could just answer the question about looking at geography outside of census metropolitan areas like this.
Sorry, yes, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm just looking for that question. Oh, right now it's only for, it only shows census tracts that are located in CMAs, but adding more geographies, including all census subdivisions, is something that we are planning to do, and is one of probably the next thing that we're going to implement.
And by next being between now and the end of March.
Yeah.
Jamie and Michelle, is it helpful if people flag geographies that they would like sooner rather than later? Is there a priority list being done?
Well, the plan is to add census subdivisions next, but if people have if the people have other ideas of geographies that would be a higher priority, then they can let us know. And for the knowledge of official languages graph under demographics, I think that's because it's looking at one single census tract in the Toronto CMA rather than showing numbers for all of Toronto.
Diana, your question about housing, I'm going to hold on to for a second. Jasmine's asking a question about how to download the data that feeds a chart or map, or do we use the sources pages to get the whole data set?
So there isn't really a good way to export data right from the dashboard. You can download the packaged workbook and then convert that into a zip file and then export it, and then you'll be able to get the underlying data sets, but they are in Tableau format. So beyond doing that, sometimes you're able to select certain parts of the dashboard and then export, but it doesn't work very consistently in Tableau. So other than that, it's probably best to just use the data sources page.
Okay, and then Steph Wolf, we see your comment about CSDs being great. So that's good. So we'll let you know. You'll get information in the newsletter when that's updated and ready to go. But you can watch for it too. All right, and Diana, you had a question about adding more housing data. And this is something that we are going to be working on for the next 18 months or so at CDP. We have another project going on, and we are working on putting together a tool that will really focus on housing data. And so you'll have access to a lot more detailed housing data through a tool similar to this to come. And so I don't think there's more plans to put housing data into this tool itself. Is that correct, Michelle? Jamie?
Well, the focus is on community recovery for this particular dashboard. I mean, this won't be the only dashboard we're producing, so certainly the housing focus will be in a separate activity. We may add another indicator or two around housing, but certainly a housing focus for this.
So Diana, maybe you want to let us know if there's anything really particular that would help you, that you would like added into this set of indicators for housing. But if not, stay tuned for more housing data to come. Okay, keep your questions coming in. What I'm also going to do is just take a few minutes now that you've seen it, and I've got a few questions for you. Sorry, let me get them open up. So based on what's already in there, what indicators, geographies, or functions would you like to see added? Oh, so Jasmine, your question might need to go into this poll. This would be helpful for those of you who've had comments too. You can just add them in here as well. Steph, if you want to add into, you know, the CSDs into here. Okay, we have comparisons, CMA, CSD, so that makes sense. Okay, this is great. Keep your answers coming in, please. Oh, sorry, you guys can't see these. Hang on. There we go. So hopefully you can see them now, and you can see what other people are typing. Can everybody see those? Can somebody give me a... Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so they're coming. Oh,
okay, great.
Probably, I'm the wrong person to answer that, Mary.
You say different views from what most of us are, or most of our audience is seeing. Yeah. I'm not sure if you can answer more than one or not. Jasmine, go ahead and see what happens. I think you can just put commas in between things too. They're supposed to be short answers, so you should be able to, I mean, you can add a whole paragraph into this if you would like. Any details you have that you want to enter, please go ahead. Okay, so if you want to add multiple comments, you just need to sort of redo your answer and write it all in one time. We'll learn as we go how to use these poll questions. Okay, another question we're really interested to know about is how do you expect to use this tool? Some of the things we think you're going to be able to do with it, and we covered this in our Tableau workshop, is that you can export from the Tableau reader. Once you have it, you know, what the screen in front of you is what you want it to be. You've picked the census tract that you want it. You can make a PDF of it. You can also make it into PowerPoint slides, you know, and then you would be able to show all the different tabs and be able to do a presentation with it. So is this something that you could see using to speak to colleagues? Is it something you use that would help you with policy development? Do you have a program that you're looking to measure that you could use this? Is this going to be a visual tool that you're going to sort of take pieces out of and be able to add? We know some people, some of our members use Tableau and have live streams on their website, and so they can have, you know, if you have a website, you can have it linked through that. One of the things I can see using this for is in your local consortium meetings and being able to use it as a discussion point when you want to discuss the data and what people are using. I also think it might be useful to help understand what data is in the catalog. Although it's not a great way to download data in the catalog, it's a great way to see what's available and see what's possible. And so by looking at this in a product that's already finished for you, you can look through it and sort of give yourself a tour or give colleagues a tour of what's even in the catalog. And then you'd know what the potential in those data tables are, and you can then lead colleagues or find your way through the catalog and sort of have a better idea of what you're looking for.
Hi. Sorry, Mary.
Hi, Mike.
You need to. Hi. I was just going to ask if the person who just put the comment regarding looking at the intersection of COVID and housing, if they could possibly identify themselves, you can contact them for a little more detail if you want to talk about your particular interest in that intersection. Or
so whoever is that, contact. You can get in touch with Mike directly. You can type into that chat box too, so he knows who you are, and then he'll know who to expect if you're comfortable doing that. One of the things that we're wondering too of what you expect to do with this tool is, does this provide you a tool to just help you understand the data and the catalog? Or is this something you're actually going to be able to take a snapshot of and produce work out of it? Because one of the things we've been looking at is really making sure that our lower capacity users have tools where the data is already put together and there's not so many steps or so many hours between learning how to use the catalog, downloading a data set, learning how to use Beyond 2020, putting into an analytical tool, and then finally having something they can use. Okay, I'm going to leave these questions up, and I still have another one for you, so sit tight for a minute. Now listen, the other thing we've done with this tool is this is something that we've been hearing from folks for a little while, and we've been trying to workshop different ideas. And so what we want to know is this actually responding to your needs? As somebody trying to use data to make decisions in your work, is this actually going to help you? And is it responding to your needs, or are we missing the mark? And let me make sure that there, and then you should be all able to see each other's answers. We got a few yeses. That's great. If it does respond to your needs, we'd also love to hear more about how that's true. If you haven't already, I mean, some of you have answered that question in the previous one with how you're expecting to use this. And so hopefully that's a need that you have, and that makes sense. Okay, that's great. Great comment about need to be able to look at the whole CSD. So these are really helpful, right? If it will potentially be useful once it includes something, or a function is added. Yeah, one of the other uses of this tool too is it helps you sort of think of broader indicators, or make you aware of indicators that maybe you're not aware of, especially if you live in a, if you're just in a housing bubble, or you're in an immigration bubble, and sort of having an indicator that's built for you so that you don't need to build the expertise outside of that, but you can just see those connections very quickly. And while I'm waiting for you guys, and you're still thinking about that, the other project we have going on, hopefully you guys have received a note from us about a survey that we have going around on our Housing Solutions Lab project. And this is the sort of baseline beginning introduction to this project. And we need a really high rate of response to this survey, because the more information we have, the more effective that whole project is going to be. And it will take less time than sitting here and filling out my poll questions that I'm asking you to do now. It's a fairly simple survey, but it really does make sure that we're getting in touch with the local community who's working on housing. Jamie, while we have this group here, are there any other questions you would like to put to the group before we let them leave?
Honestly, I think I've got lots of great information here to go on, so I don't feel like there's anything else I need right now. But thanks for all this feedback. It's going to be very helpful going forward.
Oh, that was me. Jasmine, you've raised your hand, but I can't let you have a mic in this format. So I need you just to chat, I believe. And Mike has just included that survey link. Jamie, do you see Jasmine's recent question?
Yeah. Well, we do have a lot of the data is by, do show by demographic group, but unfortunately the employment loss data, we don't have that multi-dimensionality to be able to cross-tabulate it against those things right now. But if that sort of data does become available in the future, then that is something we could look into adding.
we have time, Mary, why don't you, Jamie could go back to the dashboard for a minute, because a number of the comments were about being able to look at different elements of a particular variable other than by geography. And I know that was, I mean, that's the big intention of this initiative. So maybe we just have a quick look and see what we could do.
We sure can. Yeah, let me get these polls out of the way. Thank you, everybody, for those comments. It's really helpful, and it's really helpful for us to have them typed out. It gives us an easy way to reference them.
So Jamie, the question is about filtering, for example, knowledge of official language by any number of those variables below and adding a filter for that purpose.
I don't know if that one in particular could be filtered by that, but there are certain variables that could, there are certain filtering options that are available that aren't shown on the dashboard. So there is some possibility for.
Go to commuting. Great. Sorry. So this one does allow filtering, like looks like that second or the third filter box. Demographic group filter. And yeah, we haven't considered sex or age other than seniors. So looking at sex and age would be worthwhile. So Jamie, just drop the filter on the demographic group to see what's in the list. Right. So going deeper on these or adding more. Okay, that's good.
Yeah, we don't have the sex data right now, but that is definitely something that's available and would be worth adding, I think. That could be pretty easily incorporated into the dashboard as it is now.
Okay. And the only time we can't incorporate data by sex is for households, for the housing data.
Yeah.
Yeah, occupations data should be available by sex, I would think.
Bethany's asking, what is the one with always, often, sometimes?
Yes, that's activity limitations. I think that looking at the Statistics Canada's definitions for activity limitations is probably a good way to understand what those terms mean in this context. Mike or Michelle could probably speak a little better to what that means.
Maybe I'll let Mike do that, but one thing we haven't yet done at all is filled in that white blank space to the right with some kind of text to put any dashboard in context, so you have a sense of what, in broad terms, you are looking at.
Michelle, this is the idea that we would add a text box to each page, right, and give sort of a very high-level statement of analysis. Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, creating a little more space to the right where you see that within the big blank column.
Just to quickly answer a question regarding the activity limitations, I just put a link in the chat box which goes to our target group profile for the population with activity limitations, and those variables indicate people that who answered the disability screening questions from the 2016 census, that they experienced activity difficulties with those frequencies, either always or often, or always, often, or sometimes. If that in front of us? Sorry, I can't see. Here we go. Sorry.
And I think the point about being able to see, understand what census metropolitan area data look like, what the census subdivision or even the census division, and the ability to compare across census tracts and compare across census subdivisions. I think these are also elements that are going to appear in version 2.0. Again, this is really our first kick at the can, this version 1.0. So don't take this in any way as fixed. We're prepared, if necessary, even to start over. Although it doesn't sound like we have to start over, really is adding a lot of ability to filter by different variables, more geographies, the ability to compare across geographies, and some context for each.
Yeah, context, and then maybe even an overall introductory paragraph.
Tab, even an introductory tab,
yeah,
as well as just something, some more context. I mean, the risk of sharing this was that it comes across as very rough, but we did want to share our first version as early as possible. And we have a vote for provincial level comparisons. Time series visualizations on labor force data. It certainly seems possible. I mean, that is one data. Well, one data set where we can get monthly updates, but the monthly updates we get are at the census metropolitan area, which we then assign to neighborhood values of occupations. But of course, the whole idea of this is to build towards a big time series, that 5-year time frame. I guess, Jasmine, you're talking about much more detailed time frames than 1 year or 5 years.
But certainly, we could get the standard labor force survey estimates at the CMA level in there for a time series, and then we are also getting those supplemental indicators, but at irregular intervals. They send it to us in a batch, several months later. But that would be interesting for the labor force survey variables.
Well, at least maybe quarterly time series. I don't know if we have the capacity to update it monthly.
We do have, for data on jobs that get done from home, there is that Excel file that ranks all the various occupations with sort of a 1-0, I guess, whether they can be done at home or not, based on the American occupation. The same exercise was done with the listing of American occupations and then translated to the system that we use. Yeah, how that could be introduced here.
The latest news, Mike, on CERB and wage subsidy data.
It was, I mean, not a no, but that I wouldn't expect it anytime soon.
We do meet with Statistics Canada regularly. We met with them a few weeks ago, and we again asked. And like Mike said, they didn't give us the standard. This doesn't exist for us. It's not available. But they weren't particularly forthcoming about the timing and the timeliness of getting any of the wage subsidy data or any of the supports that are coming through on COVID, including the latest rent supplement data. So Jamie, a request to go to the commute tab. Although there wasn't a specific question about it.
Jamie, maybe while we're here, just go through the different drop-down menu options on the side. So the demographic group filters are the same for every page, is that correct?
Not every page has the demographic group filters.
Okay.
But when they are available, it shows the same options, except for the housing tab, because we're using the household and family target group profiles, which aren't available for all the demographic groups that we're looking at.
And then how prepared are we to make percentage data available for the comparison rather than total numbers, the total counts, which is what we currently have?
Well, it's the same thing as with the map, where it is definitely possible, and something we want to do. It's just we need to. It just takes a long time to set up the data for that, but it does seem like something that is worth doing.
It is, yeah. And then there's a question about home-based employment. Does that come up under the place of work tab?
Yep.
Right. So yeah, the idea of looking at occupation in terms of a few variables, even including transportation or home-based employment.
Thanks, Jasmine. Really appreciate your comments. Anybody else who has had a chance to give us feedback and is wanting to head off now, please feel free to go. Thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate your feedback. This is really a tool we have designed directly for you folks, so we want to make it actually useful. And you will hear from us again as we will bring this to you or let you know of any changes or additions to it along the way. And please do go in and download it over the next couple of days now that you've had your tour and your look at it, and see how it's going to be useful for you. But if you do have further questions, please stay on and ask them. We're not going anywhere for a little while, so we are available. And Jamie, I will send you the comments as well from the chat box to post with the recording of this webinar.
And if you can share the comments and the results of the polls, Mary, with us, that would be great, because we'll have to go through these and debrief on what we can implement sooner rather than later.
Absolutely.
What we can implement later rather than sooner.